found this leak project video from 5 years ago. Just kind of got dragged on over to it. There's this woman, Lynn Williams, a shamanic healer, which is pretty much what everybody needs, let alone everybody down with mental disorders right now. Talking about these etheric implants.
It feels nasty in the body. And they yell at me a lot when I'm doing teaching implant removal to my clients, because I Skype with everybody overseas. And they're once in a while will start yelling at me like, and I'm almost getting downloads to it like, no, you must stop. You will never be successful. And I'm like, yeah, right, sure, as we get rid of them. I mean, they're super easy to get rid of. So what can I tell you about all of these species? I mean, again, I haven't studied each one the way people that have worked in secret projects and interface with them in underground DUMBs or other places. That's not how I work with them. I basically work just to get them out of the energy fields of my clients. So I run into them in terms of them communicating with me, but I can't say I'm an expert on any one of those species.
Well, I would rather hear somebody's personal experiences than an expert that studied something from other people's experiences oftentimes, because I think that has more impact. Now you've heard these different entities communicate with you when you've done these sessions, and you've felt these different energies. You've seen some pretty amazing things. When was the last experience you had with an entity that you would call off-world? Yesterday. Talk to us about that.
Well, my clairvoyance is opening up. Well, first of all, I interact with the Sasquatch people all the time, and those are interdimensional beings, so they can pop in 4 different ways. They can pop in where they can be completely invisible, but they can actually throw material things like a rock at you, but stay invisible. They can bleed through so that they're sort of like wavy energy, like you would see the heat coming off a road, but it would be in the shape of a Sasquatch. They can bleed in so that they look kind of ghost-like. You can see them fully formed, but they look more ghostly, so you can kind of see through them. And then the 4th way is they're full on here in the dimension. You can see them. What I saw yesterday was kind of cool, because I'd been getting messages that my clairvoyance will be opening more. Now, the thing about our gifts is we don't need to have all of our spiritual gifts open to the same degree all the time. If I'm a medium and I'm supposed to do readings and help people talk to dead people and their lost relatives, I need to have my clairvoyance open, and I need to have my clairaudience open, so I can hear the messages from the dead people and I can see them. I don't need that for what I do. So my first gift is clear knowing, claircognizance. I also am clairsentient, which means I get like the tingles, chills, goosebumps going up my spine when something is truthful. Or likewise, I'll get nauseous. I'll start to feel really ill. If, for example, I shouldn't be watching something or I shouldn't be around someone. This is one of the reasons I ask for pictures of all my clients, because I can read the energy in a picture and I can tell, are you truly, somebody that I want to work with? Or are you maybe a troll or a government agent trying to come in and mess with me? So I use that as a protective device. What happened yesterday was so cool is I had taken a nap. And when I woke up, I was just sort of lying there. My eyes were sort of relaxed. I'm looking up at the ceiling at this part of my home where it's in a hallway. There's no light. There's no reflective light, nothing. And I'm watching these wavy bands of white light go across the ceiling. And every time I would kind of zone in on it to try to really look at it, it would disappear. But if I just let my eyes soften, and I just sort of relaxed, it was beautiful. It was almost like, what do you call those in the Northern Lights? You know how they kind of move across the sky? It looked exactly like that, except it was pure white light. And again, I got a very loving feeling, like those were very positive, either divas or positive beings in my home.
I mean, you get good energies then, and you oftentimes will see sources that's not just negative. That's one thing that personally, it drives me crazy when I read comments that people say every extraterrestrial is a demon. There's no such thing as aliens. There's no such thing as interdimensional beings. There's no such thing as extraterrestrials. There's humans and demons and angels and God and the devil, and that's it.
Well, again, that's just that's what's taught in most religion. And unless somebody's had their own personal experiences, it can be hard to fathom. What I would ask you is, where do you think they get all the ideas for movies like Star Wars? Like the bar scene with all the, Sasquatch is there, right? And all these weird looking characters. Now they're exaggerations, but if you look at some of the characters, oh, that's a mantid. Oh, that's a reptilian. And now with some of the movies coming out, they're full on reptilians are in the movies. They're showing you all this stuff, Dracos. They're showing you all this stuff. So this stuff has always been here. All these different types of beings have always been here. It's just they tried to dumb us down so that we wouldn't see them. It's like in the movie They Live, that one segment that floats around Facebook a lot where the guy puts on the glasses and all of a sudden he can see the billboards, obey, consume, you're a slave. Or he turns and looks at the businessman and he can see he's kind of a transhumanism robot thing. Well, they're letting us know, you guys are so close to seeing us. You're so close to seeing what's here, but you don't know how. And that's one of the things I teach in my sessions. I teach every single person how to see them. And they can see them, and then they can get them out, and then they can use those same gifts to do other things like remote view and astro project more clearly and all of these things. This is mystery school information, and it's available to all of us. We all have these skills. It's just been kept from us. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm reading through some of the comments, and one of the things that I wonder is when people reference the alien phenomenon, the ET possibility, as being strictly a tactic for the powers that be or shadow factions to control people with neuro-linguistic programming mechanisms and psychology. Certainly, oftentimes, here's one thing, though, that I do know, absolutely, because I've got friends that have been brainwashed by people that use certain things like ETs and alien abduction, time traveling, woo-woo stuff. They will use that to manipulate people oftentimes to make them feel special and control people that way. But at also the same time, I feel that there are genuine experiences that people have with the unknown, with extraterrestrials, with paranormal, that isn't explained away by having some alphabet agency put somebody under hypnosis and then use some type of trigger mechanism to make them, like hypnosis is very powerful, ladies and gentlemen. You can manipulate people and you can actually put memories into people's minds and you can regress people and you can make them think things happened that didn't. And also you can use different types of scenarios to control the outcome of somebody's thoughts. But at the same time, there are genuine, real situations that happen out there that people have evidence on. So it's like they use that to dismiss the genuine cases as well.
Yes, I think the governments are working with these ETs and have been for much longer than we are led to believe. This didn't just start with Hitler or Eisenhower signing a treaty with the ETs. It didn't, as Robert Stanley came on and showed the photographs of the ETs over the White House in the 50s. This goes back thousands of years. It goes back to Egyptian, Sumerian times. I mean, that's what we're seeing. I mean, we've seen tablets where they're showing things that look like helicopters. So the technologies and the capabilities have been around for thousands of years. Now our government is apparently abducting people and using them for various projects, maybe in these underground dumps. But yes, I think every single day people have experiences with true extraterrestrials. They are not on Earth. They are other beings that come from either other universes, other dimensions, and it happens all the time. I interact with them all the time, and nobody has hypnotized me. I am not MK Ultra. I am not a MyLab. I'm not satanic ritual abuse. I haven't had any of those traumas in my life, and I experience this stuff every day.
Like this picture right here that I'm sharing with you and everybody else, this was sent to me by a Leak Project listener in Australia, and she has experiences often where she'll go outside and she'll see like these orbs in the sky. And take a look at this thing right here. I mean, you can see that it looks like clearly some type of metal object, a metal orb, and if you put into comparison the size of it I can't really tell how big it is. It doesn't look like it's huge, but it's certainly some type of artificial object right there. And then I've had guests on the show that live in Queens, right? Or Queens or Brooklyn. And this guy works as a hairstylist. And during the day, he'll hear voices to go outside. He'll go outside, and there will be these like craft that will show up by the skyline of these buildings. And it'll morph into all these different objects, but it's the same thing. It just is morphing and changing shapes and colors and everything, and it'll stay there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes sometimes, and other people will come out and they'll look at it, and then it'll just disappear.
Yes.
It's like, what the heck is it?
Well, that's exactly what I see at night, these little plasma ships that come in. In fact, I can call them in. That's why I think they're I really think they're my homies, actually, and they come to visit, and I ask them to, because sometimes you can feel like, gosh, is it just us against the bad guys down here? Do we have any help? We keep hearing in the spiritual community, well, they can't intercede, that, we're going to have to figure this out on our own. And I think, well, the deck's kind of stacked against us. We've got a lot of technologies that we as humans don't fully understand. So when they pop in, it's just sort of reassuring to me. But what they look like is little stars. They look like a star, and all of a sudden it'll start moving. And it's a little orb like that, and it may be very faint, and it's moving across the sky. It may pop in from out of nowhere, and then it's moving across the sky, but it'll do what's called a power up, where it gets super duper bright, like 10 times brighter, and then it'll go faint, and it might do several of those power ups as it's traveling across the sky. Sometimes they move quickly, sometimes they move slowly, and then it'll just disappear. And like I said, James Gilliland has footage of this below Mount Adams up at East Seti Ranch, of this over and over again. And the military craft will come out and chase these things like they're ever going to catch them. They're interdimensional. They just pop in and out. So yes, I haven't seen it in broad daylight the way this person may be seeing one, but that's becoming more frequent. And if people know where to look on YouTube, there's video after video after video of sightings all around the world now. It's getting pretty profound. The veils are thin. They're coming through.
Isn't this exciting?
I think so.
See, when I told you about that experience that I had where I was seeing what looked like birds, but you could tell that they weren't, and they kept going back to one object, I would say they were probably a lot larger than this, because they were so far out in the sky that they looked like birds, but you could tell they were way beyond that. They were a lot higher than birds can fly that I know of. And, that sound the next day. Now, I don't remember, any strange dreams or anything before I woke up, but it was bizarre, because it was like, imagine just an enormous fan, like right above your house, that's bigger than your house. That's what it was like. So it was pretty cool. But let's talk about these etheric wombs that are being implanted into men.
Okay.
That's bizarre.
All right. So I told you my awakening story just to kind of give you an idea of how I sort of moved into this paranormal, spiritual focus in my life. And really for the last 7 years, I mean, in the beginning, I literally, I did some consulting projects on the side. I had my own company at the time that this happened. I wound down my projects because I found myself compelled to study up to 12 hours a day some days to try to figure out what was happening to me. I mean, imagine going from 0 to 60, right? 0 being, you don't know a thing about any of this. And now all of a sudden you're kind of dropped on your head, and me being very curious, I wanted to know what is happening.
That's how people get diagnosed bipolar and obsessive compulsive. When they start to tap in spiritually and start going down 10, 12-hour long rabbit holes trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. And then they get put on antipsychotics before they can wake up.
It's happening to me. And once you start going down one rabbit hole, then there's another rabbit hole, as you know, and it's a never ending, right? So I have done an enormous amount of study, and that's what led me to the etheric implant removal. And for those who didn't hear my first show, I was actually doing some spiritual and life coaching. That's what I'm pretty much doing today. And I had a client come to me, and she had quote unquote demons in her head telling her to kill herself. And she was an accountant at a local car dealership. I mean, this was not some crazy lady. And she said, I just don't understand what's happening. I don't know how to get rid of it. So I've been looking for ways to get rid of these things. I ran into somebody who knew how to do this. We had a short-lived kind of affiliation. And in that's when I was kind of booking all the clients and realizing what their stories were and realizing how prevalent this was. I had a woman call me at 4:30 in the morning wanting to book another appointment. And I got the download of how to teach her. She had already had one appointment. She got attacked again viciously, she and her dog. And I got a massive download saying, this is what you need to do to free her. So I started teaching at that point. And this was in fall of 2015. And I've been teaching ever since. And so in working with over 350 people to teach them how to feel for where these implants are in their field, in their body, as well as the field around their body, how to see them, and then to use certain tools to get them out. I was working with a man from Australia. I guess it was about 6-8 months ago. Happily married guy. He just had his second child. And as he's cleaning out what's in his lower abdomen, he says to me, Lynn, I know this sounds weird, but I've got a womb. I said, a what? He said, like a uterus. Well, he knew what that was. He had just had his second child. I'm sure he saw his wife's ultrasounds. So he's very familiar with the anatomy. And he said, and there's a fetus in it. And all of a sudden it was like click, 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 click in my head. Because I too had been part of an alien breeding program. That's a whole nother story. You'll have to have me on another time because I really do want to talk about what we're talking about here. And I said, oh my God, this factors into what they're doing with the whole transhumanism agenda, this whole cross-gendering agenda. It was a massive understanding of what was happening. So since then, I have worked with 45 men who about 39 of them have had, 40 have had wombs, have found etheric wombs, and another 35 or so of those have had either a fetus or some sort of entity inside. So now, why are they doing this, right? I wanted to know, okay, what this needs to make sense. Well, first of all, we have to understand that the etheric, you're in your aura, you've got your physical body, then you've got your etheric body, then you've got your mental, emotional, spiritual out to the causal bodies. And they're sometimes called different things, but essentially just remember you have your etheric body, which is right next to your body. You also have your etheric template, which holds the blueprint for your physical body. That's part of your aura. Then you have your mental and your emotional body. These entities reside in the etheric body. It vibrates very much like the fourth dimensional astral plane. So you can get everything from lower level demons. You can get ETs, you can get AI technology, you can get black goo or different types of goo that Harold Kautzvella talks about in his research. You can get AI insects, you can get organic type insects, but they don't look exactly like here. I mean, there's so much that it can be in somebody, okay? And so getting back to men with wombs, why would they want to do that to a man? Well, they're actually trying to eradicate the divine feminine. It's a time to bring the divine feminine back on the planet, and they don't want it. It's these overly masculine energies that are running this world and destroying it, and it's part of the whole Enki Luciferian, satanic agenda. It's a highly masculinized energy, and when something is overly masculinized, it wants to kill and destroy.
Well, you threw in the name Enki there. Talk about that, because a lot of people feel Enki, especially if you read some of the Sumerian tablets that have been translated, he actually appeared more compassionate towards humans than Enlil, his militaristic brother.
Well, and I'm not, again, I have to go by people like Robert Stanley because, that's been his area of expertise. And what Robert is telling you is that it's actually not true, that Enki is insane, and that he's the one who actually has enslaved us. And that if I guess anyone tries to intercede, he'll destroy us and this planet. Again, I don't understand.
From my understanding, Enlil and Enki are both trash. So is Thoth.
That whole thing, I can't, there's only so much I can be an expert on, right? So here's my little piece of the puzzle. I think what I'd love to see is people start connecting the pieces of the puzzle Like we all have a patchwork piece of the quilt, and now we all come together and, oh, okay, well, that now weaves into what I'm doing, and this weaves into what I'm doing, and we start to see the bigger picture, because there's just way too much to know out there. So I can't say I really understand the whole Enki story, although I've listened to every one of Robert Stanley's and other, John Lash and their videos, and I'm trying to understand it, the whole Sophia Enki story. Where it comes down to me, I'm boots on the ground here to try to free humanity. And one of the ways to free them is to get these interdimensional entities out of their system, because they mess with your emotions, they mess with your thoughts, and they mess with your physical body. They cause illness. I think a lot of the mental illnesses that people suffer, narcissism, schizophrenia, bipolar, a lot of this actually is seated in the etheric realm by these entities. And then also the emotions that, I had one client come to me and he would go into spontaneous fits of rage. Turns out he had a massive reptilian behind him that was pulling his strings, making him go into this rage at the drop of a hat over nothing. And once we got rid of these beings, he got stability back in his life, because the thoughts were his, the feelings were his, and,
Way too many spiritual healers out here talking about this shit. It's amazing what you miss when you don't turn off the fucking news.